Hey everyone, welcome to the video. Go to my cheat sheet for today's MLB main slate for today on DraftKings. Before we continue though, if you could leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my new videos. I'd really appreciate that. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPinell16 if you'd like access to my entire MLB sheet and my Slack chat. The link is in the description below for my Patreon. So anyway, let's dive into today's slate. We have a huge 15-game slate, as we always have a really big slate on Fridays. So looking forward to breaking that down. So we'll start with pitching. So up top we got Charlie Morton at 11,600. Then a couple SP2 options with Vince Velasquez at 7,200 and John Gray 8K. So let's take a little preview into the pitching sheet to see why I like the guys that I like. So up top, like I said, we have Charlie Morton at 11,600. Now he's been excellent this season. A 3.25 xFIP, which I do believe leads the entire slate. 30% strikeout rate, which is, I believe, like third when you got guys like Giolito and Justin Verlander on the slate. The pitching is loaded. We have a ton of really good arms on the slate. Giolito, Castillo, Corbin, Paddock, Verlander, Morton. It's just a loaded slate for pitching. But the thing I like the most about Morton today is the matchup versus the Tigers. So the Tigers are not very good versus right-handed pitching. We all know that. We tend to pick on them with righties pretty much every single slate. And yeah, if you look at their overall numbers, 26.5 strikeout rate, 150 team ISO, 282 team MOBA, and a 73 WRC plus, which is the lowest on the entire slate. So I do love the matchup for Charlie Morton, and I love Charlie Morton as a pitcher. He should be able to have a really good game here. He's a really heavy favorite. I believe the Tigers only implied a little over 2 runs tomorrow, so which is by far the lowest on the slate. So I do like Charlie Morton a lot, and I definitely prefer him over Verlander, considering we get about 800 savings off of him. I do think that's going to be a little important on this slate. And then I like John Gray 8K, and I know what you're thinking. He's in Coors Field, which I know, I get it, it's scary. But overall his numbers are pretty good this season. 3.97 xFIP, 23% strikeout rate. Decent, gives about 50% ground balls, 26% fly ball rate, so he's keeping the ball on the ground, and he gets a good matchup versus Miami. Now, he's had good games in Coors, so against the Dodgers, even he's had 2 really good games against the Dodgers and Coors. Had a good game versus the Blue Jays, and he gets one of the softest matchups in the entire league for right-handed pitching against the Marlins. If you look at the Marlins splits versus righties, again, not very good. It is, 25% strikeout rate, 123 team ISO, which is by far the lowest, 280 team MOBA, and a 75 WRC plus. So this is a fantastic matchup for John Gray, and he's only 8K. I know it's Coors Field, but against the Marlins, so he should be able to have success here. And then the next guy I like is Vince Velasquez. He is right here if you can't find him. Let me highlight his name. So Vince Velasquez, he is not the best pitcher in the world, but the thing I like about him is that strikeout rate of 25%. So not a lot of guys down here in that price range. I shouldn't say that. I don't have listed by price range. I should, but I don't. But he's got a good strikeout rate, 25%, and I know he gives up a good amount of power, but he gets a matchup versus the Padres, who we tend to like to use righties against. Now, if you look at their splits versus righties, it's not like it's the most cupcake matchup in the world. But that strikeout rate's really enticing at 26.2%, which is one of the highest on the entire slate. 182 team ISO is a little concerning. Like I said, there's power downside for Velasquez, but 308 team MOBA and a 90 WRC plus, so it's not the worst matchup in the world. And he's only 7,200, so there is some upside here. I could see him having a good strikeout game, 6 to 8 strikeouts, and he'd probably give up a couple runs, but as long as he can get those strikeouts, I think he's a decently safe option at 7,200. And then I'd also want to give a quick shout out to Joe Musgrove, who I also think's in play. He's had some decent games versus the Cubs this season, and I think he's just a little too cheap at 6,200. Now I know he's not been the best pitcher in the world, but I think he has a pretty good value on the slate. And just overall, it's not the worst matchup in the world versus the Cubs versus righties, but it's not the best matchup in the world either, but I think he's somewhat viable. He's got a decent strikeout percentage to righties, and I don't know, I think he can just hold his own here. So anyway, let's get into the offensive plays now. So at catcher, we have Mitch Garver. We'll just say disclaimer, I like more than just 3 guys at each position, but if I listed every single guy I like, we'll be here for an hour. I know you guys don't want to be here for an hour either. So anyway, at catcher we have Mitch Garver 5,300 versus the lefty Mike Minor. Mitch Garver has been absolutely elite versus left-handed pitching this season. It's a great ballpark for hitting. The Twins just mash lefties and righties. So give me Mitch Garver tomorrow. Should be leading off. Then Wellington Castillo at 2,900. He had a pretty good game last night, and he gets another lefty on the mound. And Sandoval had a really good game first time out, and then then he played the Red Sox and didn't have as good of a game. Now, the White Sox are a much easier matchup than the Red Sox, but Castillo's pretty decent versus lefties, and I think he's just a little too cheap here. Then Sandy Leon at 2,700. Now, as long as he's in the lineup, this is a pretty easy play tomorrow. He's really cheap exposure to the Red Sox, who have the highest implied run total of these slate. It's over 7 right now. I know the Rockies are over 7. But both great plays tomorrow versus Aaron Brooks. Aaron Brooks is not a very good pitcher, and he's slightly worse versus lefties. So, do you like Sandy Leon? Now, first base, Daniel Murphy at 4,100. He's just way too cheap versus Sandy Alcantara in Coors Field. Alcantara's got a low strikeout rate to lefties, more ISO too. So don't mind all the lefties here, and the righties are in play as well. Then C.J. Cron versus the lefty Mike Minor, 3,700. C.J. Cron's one of the better hitters in the league versus left-handed pitching. He's just been mashing them this season, and again, it's a great ballpark for hitting. So I do love the Twins righties in this matchup. Then Jesus Aguilar at 3,600 versus Daniel Norris, the lefty. Nothing scares me with Daniel Norris. He's a low strikeout guy, gives up a good amount of power, and Aguilar hits lefties very well. It's a bad bullpen for Detroit, too. And then second base, we have Josh Van Meter at 3,700. I love playing this guy, and I know he's cooled off a little bit, but it's a good matchup versus Adam Wainwright, who's pretty bad versus lefties. A little bit better, pretty decent versus righties, but lefties can really get to him. So, and it's a great ballpark for hitting, too, at Great American Ballpark. Then, I don't know if I'm saying this right, Isan Diaz at 3,400 versus John Gray. Now, I know I said an interest in John Gray, but this is the one guy I would be using. He's projected to bat second right now and just really cheap for Coors Field and lefty versus John Gray. Other than that, though, I'm probably going to be staying away from the Marlins. And then we have Scooter Gennett at 3,200. Second base is usually a position I like to spend down on, and he gets he draws a pretty good matchup versus Mike Leake, who's just nothing scary. He's worse versus righties, but doesn't mean he's any good versus lefties either. Then at third base, you have Nolan Arenado, 5,400 versus Sandy Alcantara. Now, I prefer the lefties versus him, but the righties aren't in a bad spot at all. So I do like Arenado and Coors Field at 5,400. Rafael Devers at 5,600 versus Aaron Brooks. Now, it's just a lot of people never play Rafael Devers, so he usually goes low owned. And for full stacking the Red Sox, I think you have to play him. You can always get those 30 points. He's always got 30-point upside at lower ownership than Arenado, so I do like Devers, and it's a really bad bullpen for the Orioles, so the Red Sox should be able to smash here. Then Marvin Gonzalez, 3,500 versus the lefty. He's got better numbers versus lefties this season. He's just a really cheap part of that twin stack tomorrow. And then at shortstop, we have Trevor Story, 5,700. Again, I love the Rockies on this slate versus Alcantara. Trevor Story's been elite versus righties this season. If I had to pick between him or Arenado, I'm going to pick Story. Then Bo Bichette at 4,800, and he's been awesome. Gets a good matchup versus Wade LeBlanc, who's going to be coming in after the opener. At least I believe there's going to be an opener. Pretty sure. But Bichette's been awesome this season, and he might be even underpriced still. So, I know his price came up a lot. I know he was in the 4K range, low 4K range, but 4,800, I'll still play him. Then J.P. Crawford, 3,500 versus Westpac. I think I finally learned how to say his name. I might not have, but I think that sounds better than Westpac. Westpac, I'm pretty sure. Now, he hasn't been horrible, but J.P. Crawford's been really good versus righties this season. Really good, sneaky good, I should say. I don't know if you guys realize he had a really good ISO, but versus righties. So, don't mind using J.P. here. I think he's a really good value. He's got speed, too. Then the high-end outfield, 5,500, Charlie Blackmon versus Alcantara. Just an elite lefty versus him in Coors Field, leading off. Mookie Betts, 5,200. He is a core play for me, and I just realized I gave him the wrong price in the core plays. Unless that one's wrong in the cheat sheet, but it's the same. It's only 100 off if it is wrong. Mookie Betts, though, leading off versus Aaron Brooks. I love the Red Sox tomorrow, one of my favorite stacks, and give me the leadoff guy. Mookie Betts is awesome. And then JD Martinez, 5,100. I love the idea of getting both of these two in my cash games and GPPs, Mookie Betts and JD Martinez. I think that's an excellent double stack tomorrow versus Aaron Brooks, who just sucks in the bullpen. Then the value of, not the value outfield, the mid-range outfield, we have Yasiel Puig at 4,400. He's just been really good versus righties this season. Masahiro Tanaka does give a little bit of power to righties, and he is not in the best form recently, so I don't mind going with Puig. The Indians are hot. I actually don't mind in a full Indian stack here, and I don't love picking out Tanaka, but I wouldn't fault you if you want to go with the full Indian stack tomorrow, and I'm a little biased too. And they absolutely murdered the Yankees last night, so hopefully they can stay hot. Then Tommy Pham at 4,300 versus Daniel Norris. He's really cheap at 4,300, and the Rays are one of the better stacks of this slate. I know I don't really have any listed, but do like Tommy Pham tomorrow versus the lefty. Then Michael Brantley at 4,300. I believe he went double down last night, and even though it's in Oakland, it's still a good matchup versus Tanner Roark, who's a big splits guy. He sucks versus lefties. He's pretty good versus righties, but when it comes to the lefties, he can get beat up. And Michael Brantley's amazing versus righties, and he's only 4,300 versus a average to below average pitcher, so he automatically goes onto the sheet. Then the value outfield, we have Josh Van Meter at 3,700. We went over him. David Peralta is a really cheap lefty versus Jeff Samardzija, and I really like David Peralta as a hitter. I think he's a little too cheap here. Jesse Winker leading off versus Adam Wainwright, and then Aaron Judge, 4,300. I'm tired of playing him. He keeps sucking, but one of these days he's going to pop off at this low price tag. Anyway, that's going to the core plays and top stacks. We got Charlie Morton at 11,800, and man, I've got all these prices wrong here. 11,600. Hopefully Van Meter's price is right. I think it is, though. Josh Van Meter, though, at second base, 3,700, and then Mookie Betts at 5,200. I like those guys as my core plays as of right now. That can change tomorrow, but as of right now, that's what I got. And the top stacks for me are the Rockies, the Red Sox, the Rays, and the Reds. So anyway, guys, that's all I got for the video. Remember to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on my new videos. Really appreciate that. And just heads up, tomorrow is my last day on vacation, so everything's going to be back to normal schedule on Sunday. I'll get my videos out earlier, and I'll actually be able to play DraftKings finally. I haven't been able to play the last week because you can't play here, but finally get back to it. Hopefully a more routine schedule. I don't know, I hate getting these videos out by 3 a.m. for Eastern time, but anyway, that's all I got for the video. Wish you guys the best of luck tomorrow. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below.